90 miles per hour by Tavie Carey. 90 miles per hour, as you will learn if you stand on a cliff top in the height of an October swell, is a violently powerful wind speed. It's the type of squall that rips fishermen's beanies off the heads of loyal Finisterre customers and cuts through coat zips that claim to defy weather regardless of its power. The type that brings coastguards, walkers and wave watchers to the rugged edges of coastal pressure pots that spit soupy waves up and over the headland. In 90 miles per hour, the cribber is the place to be. The stiff backing of a southwesterly wind accompanied by the gentle tug of a pushing tide makes for what can only be described as the perfect storm, pumping out a bucket list worth of 30-foot left-hand breaks building over the reef. It's an utterly un-Cornish wave, and if it wasn't for the fact it was trademarked by the Cornish quirk of 90 miles per hour winds, you could be fooled into believing you were watching one of the greats: Jaws, Mavericks, or even Pipeline. Lagoon blue surges frosted with a layer of white water marching towards the cliffs in perfect increments. The way they move is both devastatingly fast and beautifully slow. Though in all logic I know each wave is moving with speed, from the cliff they seem to sort of amble, swallowing rips and reefs and remainders of summer without so much as choking. It's not for the faint-hearted. Every surfer who chooses to tackle the cribber is greeted by a shared apprehension from those who have only just mustered enough nerve to watch from the cliffs. From the moment they commit to paddling out, surfers become ants, crawling around in ever-changing shades of blue depending on their positioning in the wave. Ink at the base, cobalt in the mid, and a milky teal when confronting the face. It's at this point we question who we are watching, Poseidon or Icarus, a conclusion that is only determined by a person's ability to harmonise with the deep-rooted rhythm of the wave. To be a Poseidon is to become a part of the water's breath, finding enough catharsis in its churning turmoil to simply exist within its jaws. The secret of the Poseidon's bravery is not in their preparations, it's in their acknowledgement of the ocean's power, in realising that no amount of fiberglass, breathwork, or nobility will ever control Mother Nature's Atlantic Sea. To listen to her music and dance to her song is to be a Poseidon. To be an Icarus is to slit the water's throat, or, more accurately, to die trying. Mark is a Poseidon, regardless of what people say. As the afternoon wraps around the headland, the wind picks up to somewhere in a bitter excess of 100 miles per hour, and with it the swell builds, chiselling the once crumbly white water into a hollow tube peeling just over the reef. Word of the new development makes it through the surfing grapevine, and soon enough, the car park overfills with Poseidons. A van full of wetsuits and miscellaneous fin keys commits to parking on the borderline of legality, too stoked to care about the £60 fine they will inevitably return to. The concoction of rusty exhaust function, pulsating drum and bass, and the "fucking hell mate is pumping" coming from the familiar voice of the driver, tells me Mark has arrived. It was only a matter of time before he'd sack off the pile of laundry he'd scouts honoured his mother that he would fold. Before turning off the ignition, he's dangling off the tail bar of his dad's VW, too busy swooning at the surf to even notice his best friend, or rather designated photographer, waving like a moron from the lookout. Mark has always been a junkie. If it wasn't drugs or parties, it was sub-zero scuba diving or surfing 30-foot waves. Pretty much anything that packs enough punch to knock the wind out of his stomach while simultaneously sending his parents into a cardiac arrest is considered scoring in his eyes. He's selfish like that. At the centre of his world is and always will be his own self-interest. I don't think it's intentional. In a lot of the ways I think it's intrinsically embedded into his character, maybe something that went undiagnosed and now just exists in the grey area between what he can and can't control. I sometimes wonder, though, if he ever swallows down an ounce of guilt like the rest of us would, or if he even felt the sensation of a lump in his throat when he'd done something wrong. Even when he pissed on Dr. Winston's doorstep, high on God knows what, he went home the next morning with his chest pumped into an overly confident barrel shape and walked past his parents like it was any other Tuesday. He's got that moth-to-a-light-bulb relationship with adrenaline, I suppose. The type of fixation that feels as important to his survival as the oxygen he breathes. The problem is, no one ever switches off the light, because he wears his addiction within the confines of his charming personality. He knows how to treat women with respect, posts pictures of his sister on her birthday, and stays in touch with his friends from primary school. This concoction of self-absorbed junkie and Sunday school graduate is what makes both hating and loving him so very hard. I peer towards the set waves momentarily as they fling a fresh batch of spray at the headland, and when I look back, Mark is suited up, head to toe in Rip Curl neoprene, a brand he has had an unwavering loyalty to since we met at the age of 6. It's only as he's beginning to make the run towards the surf that he notices me. I send him a headshake straight from his mother, and he returns with the dimpled grin that has and always will be impossible to be angry at. Almost exactly as the board hits the water, the cribbar seems to work harder, kicking up a temper tantrum that excretes the mass of surfers who value their lives from the sea and onto the relative safety of the cliff top with the rest of us. Naturally, Mark continues his pursuit out back, waltzing past the break and onto the mellow humps of the pulsing green water, until he's just another ant, crawling around in his version of heaven. As the darkness of the evening draws in, I hear a Coast Guard say to a local photographer, "That's the last of them, what a day for it," referring to the final surfer riding the white water. "You alright, love? Need a lift home?" he asks me. I shake my head. "No, I'm just watching my friend." He peers into the now empty water. "He died last year. Overdose," I reply. But he wouldn't have missed this swell for the world. The Coast Guard furrows his brow in a way that is so warm it feels like a hug. "Don't get too cold, love," he says, before leaving me and Mark for a final set.